very pleasant good morning to the members of the Small Business Association, friends and colleagues, all very glad to have you with us today for our monthly webinar. Now, those of you who may be new to this process, the Small Business Association organizes a webinar each month to address a topical issue. It is a part of our educational series for our members and our partners and colleagues to ensure that as we, go through this process of managing our firms, that we stay abreast of areas that will impact on the business environment. It is my pleasure to have you with us for the first webinar in this series for the year 2023. It is still the month of February, so I believe I can still say to you, Happy New Year. Now, throughout this session today, I just want to share one or two rules with you so that we have a productive educational event this morning. We will have very shortly our presentation on today's topic towards a wellness policy. And I'm going to ask that throughout this presentation, you keep your audio on mute. You're free if you want to turn on your video, but keep your audio on mute. And immediately after the presentation, we will have our question and answer segment. So I encourage you throughout the session today to jot your notes down, any questions that you may have, and we will have the opportunity thereafter the presentation to engage in a question and answer segment. And also at the end of the exercise, we will post in our chat for you the evaluation tool. We invite you to take a few minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, to jot your thoughts down and tell us what were your perspectives of the session today. This helps in our improvement efforts. It helps to, for us to collect information to improve our product offering as we go forward. So with those housekeeping matters out of the way, I am very, 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 very pleased this morning to have with us Professor Dwayne Devonish, no stranger at all to the Small Business Association. Actually, one would say at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, in the month of May to be precise, Professor Devonish was with us sharing on the importance of mental health and the implications of this to the business owner as we, go about managing our firm. So no stranger at all to the association. We thought that at the beginning of this year, we would commence our webinar series, again, looking at the issue of wellness, a much broader topic though, the national wellness policy and what are the implications for small firms. And a little bit at this time about Professor Devonish, as I said, no stranger, I'm sure, to many of you on the call, but you may want to know a little bit more about our presenter this morning. Now, Dwayne Devonish is a professor of management and organizational behavior in the Department of Management Studies under the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. Professor Devonish possesses a BSc in psychology from the University of the West Indies with first-class honors, and he also has a Master's of Science degree and a PhD in work and organizational psychology from the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom, with distinction, might I add. In 2020, he was promoted to the rank of professor at the age of 36, the second youngest person to attain this rank at the University of the West Indies. He currently serves as the youngest professor at the institution. Now, his main areas of interest and specialization include organizational behavior and psychology, work-related stress, and health and wellness, human resources management, and strategic planning. Now, you can appreciate that, given this background, he is most competent to help us this morning distill this topic, a national wellness policy for Barbados, and what are the implications for small firms. His bio also suggests that he was the lead author of the National Workplace Wellness Policy of Barbados in 2019, the only policy of its kind right here in the island. And he currently sits as a member of the National Committee on Workplace Wellness, and this is administered and held within the Ministry of Labour, Social Partnership Relations, and the Third Sector. So without any further ado, colleagues, I am very pleased to welcome Professor Devonish to our first webinar for 2023 as we look at a national workplace wellness policy for Barbados. Over to you, Professor Devonish.
Thank you, Dr. Holder, and good morning to everyone. I hope my video is working well. I'm seeing some shivering. Dr. Holder, are you?
Yes, your screen is shared and we can see the information.
Okay, great.
Perfectly.
Great. And my video is okay on my side. Okay, thank you so much. So let me first extend my gratitude to the Small Business Association for yet another invitation and an opportunity to present on a topic about which I'm deeply passionate. Last year in May, I was focused on the topic on mental health. And today, I'm going to broaden that discussion to first bring some good news to Barbados. And that is that we have, yes, a national workplace wellness policy alluded to by Dr. Holder. And I want to provide background to this policy, and I will delve into the implications for small businesses after. But even before I present that background, I was playing the internet, so to speak, to find some research locally on the posture of small businesses in Barbados with respect to health and wellness planning and programming. I was not successful, but I was able to procure a survey and resultant findings on a global picture of health and wellness and small businesses that I would like to share. And I think the findings may augur well for this presentation and for the wider sector. So I'm going to begin with my first finding. Now, this survey is a survey, a global survey, so it's a survey of small businesses across the globe. Albeit from first world countries, there's some interesting comparisons that I would like to draw. Now, 93% of small businesses in this survey, when they were asked the question about the importance of health and wellness, agreed that the health of their employees is important to their business's bottom line. Now, next to that finding was the interesting, I would say, contrary finding of less than 20% of them, however, indicated that they had a wellness program in place. Okay, we'll think about that a bit more and discuss that even at the Q&A. Now, in the same survey, top concerns were highlighted among small business owners with respect to employee well-being at their firms. Now, at number one, 42%, stress, high stress levels in particular, was deemed as the most troubling concern faced by small business owners and their workforce. Again, I want us to think about this very deeply when we talk about wellness programming going forward. Another interesting component of findings was the fact that over 85% of those surveyed small business owners believe a workplace wellness program will indeed positively impact their bottom line. So there was a general consensus on that. However, they were quick to acknowledge a number of implementation barriers that may very well not be peculiar to their context as small businesses. And at number one, you can see that close to half of those employers indicated that the biggest implementation barrier was a lack of interest among employees. And I thought that that was quite interesting. And you'll get to understand the nuances of that implementation barrier, because one may be quick to highlight that a lack of interest. People are not interested in a wellness program or wellness policy at a small business or within a small business context. But it could be more multifaceted in any sense than just looking at it at face value. There are a number of things that may affect interests in a wellness program, and it may very well reflect how a wellness program is designed and how it's executed. So I think part of my remit here is also providing a bit of guidance to those who are interested, and closer to the end of this presentation, for those who are interested in developing their own wellness program, especially in keeping with what we have as a national workplace wellness policy. Now, so I start off my presentation by acknowledging that wellness programs are not perfect in any way. They're not perfect at all. There are a number of reasons why wellness programs fail or lose energy. And I think one of the key things that we have to remember is that, like many things in life, we can have a lot of energy and momentum at the start of these programs. So you have a company that starts a wellness program, and in the first few months, you know, it climaxes, but then over that period, probably 6 months, you see a plateau effect. And that sustainability or that sustained energy actually dies out. And one of the driving reasons behind the lack of sustainability in many workplace wellness programs is the fact that the educational and awareness component actually is lacking in sustainability. And I think that what happens is that many programmers or many designers of workplace wellness programs see education as something that you do at the start and you close off, and then you release or you execute the wellness program, and not understanding that when you engage in wellness programming, the educational component has to be ongoing equally. It has to be a partner in the process of the execution phase. So that's a key thing that we have to think about. Another thing that I've found, and I think this is not surprising, is the fact that many workplace wellness programs lack attractive incentives and rewards for staff in getting them to participate in these programs. And, you know, and gone are the days that you would say that a wellness program inhabits exclusively membership being paid at a gym by an organization. So they give you an 80% cut and say, but that's sufficient for you to be incentivized. When in fact, you work 8, 10, 12 hours of the day, and there's no time that that organization has provided or has done to enable you to even take the time to do the gym that they have so nicely subsidized. So it is also putting your action behind your words for many organizations. The other thing that I think haunts workplace wellness programs, and not again peculiar to the Caribbean, is the fact that workplace wellness programs have been designed conventionally to place a lot of the work on individual employees. For example, you might have a workplace wellness program that says there's an app that you can download, and they send this information to their employees, and there's a yoga meditation app. This can help you with stress and mental health challenges and so forth, and that's it. So there's a checklist. It's seen as a checklist that you just check off a box. Okay, we've done that. We are in wellness programming mode. And there has to be recognition that if we're talking about workplace wellness, it has to be a partnership. It cannot be within the exclusive rights or within the exclusive control of the employee. It has to be the both managers, employers, employees, even trade unions, all together working on the initiative of wellness. So it has to be a collaborative effort. And of course, another key reason behind failed wellness programs at the level of organizations is the fact that those programs oftentimes do not match the needs and preferences of employees themselves. I've seen too often organizations would come to me and say, well, Devonish, I would like a workplace wellness program. I found one online. So they take it off the shelf. And I keep telling people the same way that we plan our training, when we engage in training, if you think about it this way, when you engage in training, you would typically assess the needs of your staff. You would determine what training deficits they have, and then you would try to go back and either design or adopt a training program that is commensurate, that is consistent with the needs in terms of dealing with those particular needs. Now, that is the same for any wellness program. It's not something that you just take off a shelf and say, well, because everybody else is doing, this is Shafet, so Shafet is doing a wellness program, so I'm also in the fast food sector, so I'm going to do a similar wellness program, without understanding that the idiosyncrasies across all businesses when it comes to anything. And wellness is obviously no different. So we need to do a lot more in terms of these assessments as precursors to the kinds of wellness programs that we choose to design and execute for our employees. So those are some key things that I would like to throw there. Now, there are many questions that we might have. How can my small business benefit from workplace wellness programs and policies? So what are the benefits? Now, why is it that I'm pushing this at small businesses? Now, I don't think it's no surprise, or it's not something foreign to us, that the small business sector is the largest sector, within Barbados, or within the Caribbean especially. It is the largest sector of commercial activity. More than 90% of businesses are small or micro-sized businesses, in Barbados in particular. And the thing about small businesses is that, and this is perhaps the irony, small businesses are small, yes, in terms of capacity, in terms of size, but they do a lot of work. There's a lot of activity in small businesses. I run a small business on the side, 6, 7 employees, and we do a lot of work in truncated time slots. And imagine you're in a context where you're doing a lot with very few resources. Clearly, things like stress-related adverse health reactions are common, a lot more common in small businesses that you would find, and compared with larger entities. And I think it is prudent for us to place stronger emphasis as a country, as a sector, on health and wellness. And I know that there's the normal pretext that will be out there in terms of excuses. I don't have time, but we are small. That's why we're called small. We don't have the money, we don't have the capacity to worry about health and wellness when we have to worry about meeting the next paycheck or trying to keep our business afloat. But hopefully by the end of this session, we'll see it differently. One of the things I think all of us can appreciate as small business owners is the fact that absenteeism hits hardest in a small business. Because if you think about it, in a small business, and let's talk about a business of 5, 6 employees, more than likely you have one or more employees doing multiple tasks. So that if, God forbid, one thing happens, and we had the pandemic recently where people were infected and they had to be isolated, the impact on one employee in a business of 6 employees, where that one employee might be taking on multiple roles, is potent, is palpable. So wellness programming then has a place. It goes a long way in terms of improving wellness, and not just wellness, the resultant productivity outcomes and gains that can be had, especially when you can alleviate problems like absenteeism and even presenteeism in those types of businesses. So generally, workplace wellness programs typically bring together, a number of benefits like harmony. I think collaboration and teamwork, especially in a small community like a small business of, just under 25 employees. Because the emphasis here is that you have persons, yes, they're working towards the common goal or the common outcome of getting increased profitability and so on, but now you have another goal that you can work in a common vein, in a united vein, in tandem to achieve. And I think that that's a key thing, a key benefit of workplace wellness programming. Now, the material section of this presentation really is going to, as I said, speak to the heart of what we have now as a national workplace wellness policy. I think it's something to celebrate. And just to give you a quick background before we get into the definitions of health and wellness, is the fact that the National Workplace Wellness Policy was birthed in a conversation that was had in 2015, late 2015, by Orlando Gabby Scott, who is the former Assistant General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Unions, the largest trade union we have here in Barbados. He came to me and said, Dwayne, I want you to do some research for me. I want you to find out what countries exist with a resident national workplace wellness policy. And I did the research. I said, well, Gabby, as you know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take on the challenge. And I searched, I spent months. I said, but Gabby, I can't find a country. I mean, the closest I've found is Fuji, which had a national wellness policy, but not a national workplace wellness policy. And we started the process. We said, no, we have to do this. We have to be the first mover in this. And between 2015, late 2015 into 2019, and obviously between in the intermediate steps, we've met with stakeholders across the not just the business sector in terms of employers, but trade unions and workers and HR managers. Hermab was a big partner in that one. And all of them contributed to what we now have as the National Workplace Wellness Policy. Now, I dare say that very few people know that we have a National Workplace Wellness Policy in actually operating currently, and even fewer know that this is the first ever national workplace wellness policy globally. So that's something, as I said, we should really celebrate. Now, by the end of the presentation, I'll share a link where you can access some resources, the National Workplace Wellness Policy in a PDF document. And I can say that the Small Business Association can put it on their website. It is already on the Ministry of Labor, Social Security and Third Sector's website. But I'm happy to share it at the end. It's going to be a link that you can download it from a Google Drive. And there are some resources that I also created to support wellness program, and I'll speak to a little later. But I want to then get into this conversation then about health and wellness. And one of the things that I want to break the ice here is the fact that there's been a gross misappropriation of health and wellness, in the sense that we use the terms interchangeably, when in fact they're separate things. And when people speak about wellness, there's a trendiness to wellness. But when people speak about health, there's a medicalization of health, in the sense that health is for the public, the public health professionals like doctors and medical practitioners and so on. And there is a distinction that is much more material to that. And it is the fact that health really speaks to the outcome or the particular target or status of our physical, mental, and social well-being. It speaks to the overall condition of one's body and mind. Now, the thing about health is that the definition is naturally a static one. So you can go to a doctor, for example, and you do your blood work, and you have a clean bill of health. You're free to go. No diabetes, hypertension, you good. No cancers detected, and you are considered to be healthy under the standard. But you leave that doctor's office and you do as much as you like in terms of drinking alcohol. You do as much as you like in terms of eating as much salt and consume as much sugar, engaging in very little exercise or physical activity. Now, while you can consider yourself to be healthy, in a different vein, you are not considered to be well. And this is where the definition of wellness actually deviates or departs from health. So wellness is now more about a lifestyle. It is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life. Now, the beautiful thing about this definition then is that if you had to break down wellness in its constituent parts, the first thing that you should notice about the definition and how it deviates from health is the fact that it is a conscious and self-directed process. So it is not something passive. Because think about it, someone can be healthy and not really perform any activity. I can go to the doctor now, having not exercised, let's say, for a year, and still can be considered healthy because there's no disease in my body, or there's no mental health challenge or problem. But in looking at my lifestyle, day by day, which are now the micro expression, the micro units of my daily living, I am not really a well individual. Well, in this case, as an adjective, I'm not a well individual. The second part of wellness, which deviates a bit from health, is the fact that wellness is deliberately multidimensional and holistic. Now, when we speak about health, oftentimes we exclusively focus on the physical, sometimes the mental, but more so the physical side of the human condition. Wellness goes beyond that. There are several dimensions of wellness that I'm going to speak about very, very soon. And I would want to show you how they underpin themselves within the National Workplace Wellness Policy, and then how that in turn will have implications in terms of how you engage in wellness programming at your level. And then another key set of characteristics are the proactive and dynamic nature of wellness. Think about it, the kinds of activities that we were doing before COVID to maintain or to reach an optimal state of wellness or health are going to be totally different from the activities that we do now during peri-COVID and even in the post-COVID environments. So it suggests that wellness is an evolving thing, okay? It is a state of living a healthy lifestyle that may very well have to be adjusted according to the environment in which we're in. Whereas health is that state of well-being that is pretty much static. And another way of looking at it is that if health then is what we want, wellness is how we get it. So it's more like the bridge that between where we are and where we want to be in terms of our health status. So a bit on that National Workplace Wellness Policy. Now, the National Workplace Wellness Policy was actually completed in late 2018. And at that point, as you know, there was a new political administration in power in 2018, post-May 2018. And the Workplace Wellness Policy was again reinitiated by under the Ministry of Labor, and it was accepted and it was pushed towards cabinet for ventilation. And then in 2019, I think it was in February 2019, as you know, the government's financial year ends at the end of March. So going into February, March, it was approved by cabinet as the official policy of the land. And it reflects typically that nationwide, hence multi-stakeholder commitment to safe, positive, and healthy workplaces. The thing about the policy, when I authored the policy, when I completed the policy, it was made clear that the policy could very well be applied to households and schools and communities, and not necessarily be exclusively catered to workplaces, but that remains the primary target group. Now, within the policy, and the design of the policy, I made provisions very early in 2017 when it was in the midstream process of the policy writing, to have an implementation plan, well, or really a guidance plan for implementation, not necessarily implementation plan, because that's something that we're now hashing out. But in terms of the implementation guidance within the policy, it was called, there was a call for a National Workplace Wellness Committee that would fall under the Ministry of Labor, and that could be chaired by the minister. I was happy that they took the recommendations that I made quite literal, because we now have a National Workplace Wellness Committee, of which I'm a part, but the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Colin Jordan, he sits as chair alongside a multi-stakeholder group of not just trade unionists, business community representatives, but we have NGO, other NGO sector organizations sitting on that, Ministry of Health and so on. And we started, I think we had in earnest, we had our first move in terms of meeting last year, where I proposed that we set up an implementation plan that clearly would bear some implications for all businesses, all workplaces, not just businesses, but workplaces across Barbados. And I'm happy to share a bit of that in terms of what that would look like. Now, just to add context here in terms of how this National Workplace Wellness Policy feeds into where you are or where you sit in terms of a small business owner, is the fact that if you imagine that you can have multiple workplaces operating with their own wellness programming and their wellness policy. So this is not a situation where we're supplanting, or we're trying to kind of force you to abandon what you are doing. All we're trying to do here is to kind of create a level of synergy and structure for individual workplaces and owners to recognize that there are best practices out there, and that you can align what you're doing, if you're doing it, if you started doing it in terms of wellness programming, with the tenets of the National Workplace Wellness Policy. And the other thing about it is that it's not simply a top-down process, but this process is also a bottom-up facility of sorts. So within our implementation strategy, which is going to be rolled out very soon, after the government's financial year comes to end here, and from April 1, we will be looking at a first-year program of educational and awareness building. And what this first year is going to do for us and for you is that we are going to be, one, we'll be going out there in the various media and sources of of channels and avenues to disseminate information to you, but also education about wellness programming. We're here to hold your hands as you go through grappling with workplace wellness. What does it mean? How do I develop a program for myself? And that is something that is totally new, because as I said, in previous to this policy, many businesses, and they continue to do so, they leave it to their own devices to come up with programs and policies that are sometimes poorly equipped to deal with the challenges and the needs of wellness and health of their workers. So what we want to do is to turn that on its head, to kind of rebalance the affairs of workplace wellness programming, to ensure that we see the results, we can enjoy those outcomes, and we can have more sustained results over the period of our life course as businesses. So what is it that the policy would then seek to achieve in terms of goals? We want, again, as I said, we want to be able to guide. We're not legislating. This is not legislation. There's a difference between policy and legislation. We know that we have the SHAW Act, which is the Safety, Health at Work legislation, and that has been always the framework that we use when it comes to health and safety. I have done written pieces, in fact, in the Sunday Sun that will be coming soon. There will be a discussion, a critique that I and another young lady in the name of Maya Kelman, attorney at law, she and I have decided to write an article on a critique of the SHAW Act in terms of its treatment of health and safety, because within the Act, there's still no clear definition of what health and safety are and how they distinguish themselves. Within the Act, there's no coverage beyond the physical environmental hazards and risks that we are accustomed to. Noise, we know noise pollution has been a big thing that the Act covers. We know things like radiation and other physical environmental threats, but the Act does very little, or if anything at all, to discuss or even to take in coverage the psychosocial, what we call the psychosocial environment, things like job demands and stress and mental health and organizational change events that can produce a lot of psychological risk factors and hazards in the front of the workplace. And so it's important that even though we have legislation, as we know, legislation is supported by regulations, because not everything can be placed within the legislative instrument, but the policy then I think it does as best as it can a job to bridge between the gaps that the legislation has in terms of being quite glaring, and between that and practice in terms of what actually happens on the ground. And we're hoping that this policy then provides guidance and education and a bit of hand-holding in the earliest stages, especially in the first 2 or 3 years as I'm trying to think about and crafting in the implementation plan that would support workplaces in providing not just a wellness program or wellness product for their employees or workforce, but the benefits, that they can see the benefits. Because oftentimes the complaint is, why am I going to do another workplace wellness program when I have not seen the benefits? And it was just a cost, it's just a liability, it's not an asset. So promoting and contributing extensively then to the appropriate knowledge and skills and attitudes. And this not just within the workforce, but even among employers themselves, like small business owners. Like you too have to look after, you have to understand why wellness is so important. And the fact that there is that relationship between wellness and the bottom line. Now, the question that you would ask is what model of wellness we're using. Is this the same wellness traditionally that's treated as a physical exclusive focus where we emphasize the body of exercise, we look at exercise and diet and making sure that we take our medication, is not within that narrow realm at all. Based on our research in 2017, especially when we were thinking about the definitions of wellness, we had conceded on 9 dimensions of wellness. And this is no different from many other models of wellness out there, more contemporary models of wellness. And I want to go through each of these particular models. And I want to share how these dimensions can actually have implications in the way we design wellness programs, even in our small businesses. So first dimension I want to get to is the dimension that focuses on physical well-being or physical wellness. And this dimension is absolutely critical because, I mean, yes, there's been overemphasis on physical wellness when we talk about wellness programming, but we can't get away from the fact that Barbados still has, is still among the top in terms of NCD's prevalence. Physical exercise and activity has long been a kind of a device for us to kind of protect ourselves from NCDs, but also managing NCDs. We know that it is a proven fact that when you exercise, your blood vessels relax and it allows for blood pressure to normalize. We know about that. We know, and it also supports then medication use in that way. Healthy eating and nutrition, I think it goes without saying that we've been consumers or over consumers of sugar and salty foods. Drug and alcohol abuse, these abuses are still significant problems, perennial problems in our culture. The notion of rest and sleep, oh dear, we don't talk enough about rest and sleep, especially within the workplace, especially where I'm a small business owner and I need to, with my employees, I have to continue to work. And the irony, even at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when we were asked to slow down, because businesses were still trying to keep afloat, it was a reverse effect because it was almost like you were working twice as hard or 3 times as hard. Even remote workers can tell, not many of your employees as small business owners could probably attest to the fact that people felt that they were working much longer, much harder at the height of COVID because things have to, and it was always about getting things done now. So rest and sleep, absolutely critical for this dimension. The prevention and management of physical illnesses and disease. I don't think we do enough when it comes to managing and prevention, but I want to spend a little bit of time on managing because we still have to recognize that there are people who already have conditions that need to be managed, even in the workplace. And we know that there are, there's some delicate conversations too, because there is that requirement for confidentiality. A person cannot be forced to declare that they're diabetic, they're hypertensive, even though certain health facilities may require certain things, you do what you like an organization might require you to do a test, and that is then shared with HR and so on, but there's still confidentiality arrangements in place. I don't think we do enough to demonstrate how our workers can manage their conditions, their physical health conditions especially. And things like physical screening and tests, developing a culture for that. We still know that men especially are more disinclined to go to doctors or medical practitioners to get checkups. And that, again, is a perennial problem that we're still trying to break that culture barrier with. Psychological wellness. Psychological wellness remains a very critical aspect. This speaks to the mental health component of the human condition, our attitudes, how we manage emotions, how we manage our thoughts, how we deal with stress. The key thing here is that the fact that we still do have people with mental illnesses who come into organizations. And we have to recognize that these people exist. Like people who have physical illnesses, they too should not be discriminated against. But in fact, a promotional and a management effort has to be made to allow these people to manage their conditions very well. And the thing about mental illness is that is an NCD. A lot of people don't even know that is an NCD, like all other NCDs, and it has to be treated as such. Environmental wellness is something that, again, has been a perennial issue for us. When we speak about environmental wellness, we're talking about our environment, our physical environment, especially in terms of how we service our equipment. I've seen businesses complain about, or employees rather, complain about the fact that owners do not even service their ACs, the air conditioning units, and that creates a health and safety risk. We've seen many government buildings, for example, and I believe many private sector buildings have suffered from mold in their walls, their physical walls, and that's created a significant health and safety hazard. So when we speak about environmental wellness, it looks at how we take care of our environment, recognizing that we need to, if we don't take care of the environment retaliates in that way. And things like air quality, water and food. We've seen the implications of climate change, especially. But if we think about our physical space, our physical spaces that we keep and that we work and operate, we too have a responsibility to ensure that any wellness program has to cut across our environments. Social wellness is a big thing that we cannot obviously we can't speak enough about social wellness, in the sense that every time we come to work and we interact with people, there's a relationship that we're procuring, that we're servicing. And things like workplace bullying and violence, which remain threats or hazards within the workspace, need to be addressed. As I said, one of the criticisms of the Health and Safety Act that we have locally is that enough has not been done or said with respect to workplace bullying and workplace violence. I'm happy that there's a convention, the C-190 convention, if you don't know, represents the convention on the prevention of violence and harassment at work. I think it was only recent that the government has ratified, and with ratification, once it was adopted and it was ratified, it means that based on the legislative course of action, it has to go into a legislative framework, and systems and everything have to be a go to reflect ways and programs and methodologies and interventions to treat workplace violence and workplace bullying. So social wellness is a very important construct. Intellectual wellness it deals with the creative and innovative capacities of your workforce. And this is not simply sending your workers to do a degree or some training program. Intellectual wellness is a kind of an ongoing effort to keep your workers stimulated intellectually, to keep honing their knowledge and skills. Oftentimes you can go into a workplace and you feel intellectually dead. There's no creativity, there's no space for innovation. In fact, there might not be a tolerance for it. And I think we as small business owners, I know that the smaller we are, the more risk averse we might be, but we also have to be open for our employees to take smart and manage risk and allow them to be creative and to also contribute to decision-making at different levels. Occupational wellness, this one speaks more to work-life balance, and we can't say enough about work-life balance. We saw the effects of COVID on that. Career growth and satisfaction. There are many organizations that will say to us that, we don't have any more to go. There's no more there's no more levels that you can ascend to. So when we talk about career development and advancement, many employers will tell you, but that's a waste of time, because, or employee might say, but that's a waste of time. I'm at the top of my game, or I am at the bottom here, and the next level above me, the person there is going nowhere. And I keep telling people that career advancement and development is not necessarily you ascending in a role above you. You can have career development within the role that you are in. So I may be a teacher for 20 years and I've never been promoted from this level to that level. But guess what? Because of new things in my area, technologies and experiences and practices, I develop myself. So I grow in my career, qualitatively speaking. And it may not be reflected in the paycheck or the ascension in a promotion sense, but nevertheless, I have grown in my career. So we have to kind of relanguage the parlance in terms of when we speak about career advancement and growth. Spiritual wellness. This one had some contention when we started off in 2018. It came pretty late in the development of the policy, but there was a recognition that spiritual wellness is not necessarily because you're religious or you're non-religious, that it doesn't speak to you, but spiritual wellness goes beyond that. So here we're not talking about a specific religion, but the fact that there's a natural inclination for human beings to find deeper meaning in their lives. And that should also apply within the workplace. Because human beings, we bring beliefs, principles, and values into the workplace context. And there's a capacity for love and compassion and forgiveness in that workplace setting. And I think spiritual wellness would add a nice company to all the other dimensions of wellness. Thinking and speaking and acting in ways that are consistent with those beliefs and values, especially in our organizational context, can go a long way. Cultural wellness is a favorite of mine. This speaks to how we are apprised of our own cultural background. If you think about it, we as Barbadians, there are certain value systems and beliefs and norms that we hold close to, and they can make or break us within our organizational life. Our culture dictates how much we eat, what we eat. Our culture dictates how we see weight, how we see, healthy and unhealthy practices. But the thing about cultural wellness, it also allows us to appreciate people from other cultures and from other practices, things like ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation. Disability is a big thing. I'm working now on a policy university has provided for me to relook at on a national policy for disabilities, for persons with disabilities. The first ever policy, and that policy is going to come very close to an end in terms of development, and that would have implications in terms of cultural wellness, because you're now in an organization as a small business that you may have, may have the need to kind of bring in someone who has a disability. Now, how do you treat such an individual? How do you manage the workplace that allows that individual to feel welcome and not discriminated against? And how you as a business owner, because this is a reciprocal transaction, how your business can benefit from the effort and from the performance and from the contributions of someone with a disability. Financial wellness, another favorite of mine. I think we added this just after spiritual wellness. This dimension speaks in volume to how we manage our financial situations. Living within your means, managing your money. I think even as small business owners, we can kind of relate to this whole thing about, especially if you're just a registered business and you're not incorporated, and you have your personal finances, but you still have your business finances there, all in mix up. And you have to have an appreciation of how do we understand debt? How do we, and the fact that debt does have its benefits, but then how do we have a sustainable attitude and a good relationship with debt and not a corrosive one? Building financial literacy is also a critical component here. Debt management, overall financial management skills. So what are the implications for small businesses? And as I know my time is approaching very quickly, and I really want to have a discussion with you. So I'm going to spend just 2 or 3 minutes on these last remarks here. The implications for small businesses. So you have 10 employees. Why do I need to invest in expensive, onerous workplace wellness policies? This is the answer here. Workplace wellness programs come in different sizes. And I know that the National Workplace Wellness Policy and its Oversight Committee, of which I'm part, will be well placed to assist small businesses in directing them especially to workable, well-customized wellness solutions, as I call them, for their workplace. So don't think that wellness automatically means that I have to spend thousands or hundreds of dollars, because there are creative ways to kind of elude the high expenses when it comes to designing and executing a program of wellness, okay? And there's also the spin that with these programs over the medium to long term, you can see the benefits or outweighing the costs, especially in terms of illness and absenteeism, sickness absenteeism, that can wreak havoc on many businesses. And how can I start working on building a workplace wellness program? Now, outside of you going and pulling down an off-the-shelf program, let me just say in the first year, starting from April, May 2023, we will be coming to you. Yes, we will be coming to you, giving you some good educational and awareness building support in how to not just building a workplace wellness policy, but understanding what the tenets are inherent in these programs and how to roll them out into your organizations. And I like to talk just briefly on the steps for those who are interested. And these are steps that we will guide you through. But these are steps that I've crafted in terms of how you can think about developing a workplace wellness program, even ahead of our efforts to intervene on your behalf. Things like examining the needs of your workforce. As I said, you have to begin with a needs assessment. Find out exactly what are the health and wellness needs of your workers and, of course, of yourself, and find out their willingness to accept it, because it's not everything that you develop that is going to be received equally by all workers. It has to be a collaborative effort. It has to be something that you can gain buy-in from. It's very important. Second step, determine the objectives and the goals. Not every organization is going to have the same goal or set of objectives for their workplace wellness program. And because of that, you have to link your objectives to the desired result that you want for your business and for your employees. So there are two sides to this. You do a workplace wellness program to produce results, yes, primarily for the employees that operate or function within the workplace, but also for the business. Okay, so you need to see those benefits. In the business, you're looking at your bottom line. What are the results that I'm gathering from or garnering from this workplace wellness program? And what are the benefits I'm witnessing or observing from my employees? Thirdly, you need to set a budget. Like you do anything. Setting a budget is a matter of course. For the workplace wellness program, you need to ensure that every dollar counts. So for everything that you need to do, and if you have to itemize it as you would normally do for your on your balance sheet or what you have, or your planning, your financial planning, sorry, you need to make sure that that is included. In fact, the interesting thing about this is that as a committee, as you know, this is estimates, time of estimates in government. And in estimates, what ministries and departments do is that they get together and they try to look at the programs that they have and they try to append a cost figure. And then they go into the well of Parliament, as we say now, and they have to debate. And that's what's happening all this week. So you two have to take the same kind of energy and alacrity in that, in the sense that you have to be very methodical in terms of how you cost your workplace wellness program from start to finish, and feel satisfied that you've spent enough, but not too much on something that's going to bring great benefit to you. Designing and execution is also a big thing. As you know, implementation is about education, is about softening the ground so people can receive it, and also allocating the necessary resources. Very important. Communicating, incentivizing, and monitoring. Those are the three things I'm going to close off with. Communication is key with your staff. Let them know the full details of your program. You have to, and it has to be ongoing. Use of incentives, please. Incentives are absolutely critical. Anytime you develop a wellness program, incentives have to be incorporated at the very earliest parts. I'm going to give you a few examples of incentives that you can think about that are not too costly. And monitoring evaluation. I don't think we do enough to monitor and evaluate any program we have in this country. And I think we need to do different when it comes to this, do differently in terms of how we go about monitoring, evaluating, because that's the mirror that we hold in front of our face. And we have to be happy with what we see in the mirror and not destroy the mirror, that is destroy the messenger, that's the analogy, but to make the changes that we need in our own business when we are not seeing the results that we want. These are just some examples of incentives that you can think about. Catered lunches, meal delivery, and they can all link back to wellness in terms of even providing discounts for workers, gift cards, vouchers. There are very creative ways in which you can incentivize employees participating in programs and even as rewards for achieving outcomes that you all set collaboratively. So I'm happy to close here to entertain questions, but I leave you with this 4E approach about how you can implement an approach that I kind of coined in 2019. Educate, enable, engage, and encourage. Thank you so much. And over to you, Dr. Holder. It was indeed a pleasure.
Yes, thanks once again, Professor Devonish, as usual, very comprehensive presentation. on our topic today. Just let our audience know that for the next 10 minutes, because we're nearly out of time, Professor, we're nearly out of time, but we do want to get one or two queries, questions from our participants. I'm going to invite you, please, to go to the chat now and write your question in that we can discuss with our presenter this afternoon. Before we get to that, I want to invite you to view this word here now from our member. For the next 30 seconds, we have a member who wants to share some information about their products with you. For the next 30 seconds, let's view this presentation from a member, then we'll come back to have our question and answer segment. All right, so that was from East Point Consultancy. And if it is that you didn't get all that information, you can give us a call, drop us an email here at the SBA. And for those of you who may have joined our webinar late today, just let me remind you that the session is recorded and will be placed on our website, www.sba.bb, in the SBA TV segment, on our YouTube channel as well. And it is being streamed even now on our Facebook page. So in the event that you miss any aspect of this, please don't despair. You can always go back to any of our channels and watch the presentation. So for the next 10 minutes, Professor, I will admit that I have not gotten past the very first slide. That's the truth. I was still trying to come to grips with that first slide. 93% of small businesses who agreed that, the health and wellness of the employee was critical to their bottom line, but only 20% actually had some sort of wellness program. Let me assure you that the Small Business Association is also part, as you know, of the National Wellness Committee, and we would make sure that we get those policies and we share them with the membership and encourage the membership to adapt them to their own specificities as we go forward. But here is a question from Heather Headley. In businesses where you contract persons in a work for hire arrangement, how applicable really is the health and wellness policy and program to your business model that you proposed earlier?
Okay, thank you for that question. Now, so in businesses where you contract persons in a work for hire arrangement, how applicable is the health and wellness policy? Now, the thing about it is that when people who work for you, whether they are in-house employees, or they may be independent contractors, they may be part-time, they may be on a casual contract, they're still providing labor or providing services to the business. And if you think about it, your business then, and if that's your business model, if those individuals are sick, if those individuals are unwell, you are going to feel it. Because it doesn't matter the character in which labor is taken. Once labor is providing that service in whatever form, and they're at risk of a health and safety hazard or some kind of negative event, it will send a lot of shock to your business. The health and wellness policy, the workplace health and wellness policy that we've designed, does not discriminate in terms of the kinds of labor. So the same practices that you would use in-house or in permanent staff arrangements, you can use with your independent contractors. Remember, this is not something legislative. It's not that you're prescribing, you're shoving it down their throats. This is something that all can partner with. So there's no discrimination there at all.
Okay. I guess you're also seeing the question from Karen here.
Yes.
yes, they're having an issue with an employee who seems to be battling with dementia or Alzheimer's and so on.
Mhm.
How
Okay.
would this fit in? How would it be dealt with?
Yes, and these are quite sensitive issues. Just before I respond to that, I just wanted to let the members know, or the participants here, that I've sent a link in the chat. If you scroll up, that will allow you to download the folder that contains the wellness policy and a wellness tool that I designed for individual employees only last year, and it was I kind of is released now. So it's for free use, free consumption. I design tools for living. So I'm not there charging. So they can download and use for their staff. But going back to the question from Karen, yes, Alzheimer's, dementia, these are serious conditions. In fact, Dr. Nurse, who's probably part of the community here, who's joining us, and I had worked on a national aging policy for Barbados. That policy is going to soon go to cabinet. And that policy actually makes a number of provisions to support persons with dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, of course, you're dealing with an issue where this person may not be considered to be elderly as a case in terms of 65 years and older, but we have actually had conversations with one colleague who's in this area in terms of managing conditions like dementia at her facility, that younger people now are having these conditions. So it means that if younger people are having conditions that we thought were conditions that were exclusive to older people, it means that we're going to see a lot of this in the workplace. Now, there's a sensitivity that has to be had here. What the first thing is, as I said, a needs assessment has to be done. At what stage of dementia or Alzheimer's in terms of the condition is progression, is this employee at? That's very important because serious conversations have to be had between the employee, that employee, and his or her family, because we know about and this is something that we treat again very sensitively with. We know that there are persons with dementia who there's still rights. Once that dementia is not severely progressive, that it places a risk to the business and to the individual, there is always a way in which you can recover. I think this is a conversation that where health practitioners may have to come in to kind of assess this situation. There's also, as I said, the honest conversation as to whether this person sees it fit to still remain within the work environment, and perhaps there may be a consideration where flexible practices may have to ensue. For example, I know people may choose to work close at home. So if you have that person in the environment, the physical work environment, you may find it best to probably have that person in a remote environment at home, especially with caregivers, because we know the effects that dementia can bring on individuals and on businesses. So that is something I think sensitively you would need to discuss first with that individual and conduct a needs assessment. Worst case scenario, medical onboarding are things. I mean, these are things that are a matter of course, and I'm not saying that we're going to get to that, but we don't know what the stage is. But I would want that the owner, Karen, if you know the situation, that you impress on them to really do a needs assessment and to have that conversation as early as possible in terms of what are the best ways we can treat this, because there are legal implications too.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems to be early stages, says Karen.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have a follow-up question for you, Professor. I mean, comment first and then question quickly.
Yes.
As you know, COVID-19 has changed it. It's really been a game changer in how business is being done. Even now, our educational sessions continue as webinars. We've not gone back to the face-to-face in full. And we tried it here because of the restrictions of COVID, reducing our work hours. So, we initially had tried 9 to 3. We've stabilized now at 9 to 4. So no longer the 8:30 to 4:30 concept. And so, and I find that, it appears, in my view, to have a positive impact on our environment. But I saw recently that the UK just finished a study on the potential shift towards a 4-day work week. So I want to get your thoughts. Have you done any research? Is there any research for the Caribbean and maybe the Barbados context relative to this and the impact on the wellness of the employee and the work environment for that matter?
I think that's an interesting observation, Dr. Hall. I've actually been following trends in terms of the 4-day work week, and I'm not just in the UK, other parts of Europe too, Sweden and we also saw in Denmark, the 4-day work week is an interesting notion. There are obviously, as you know, cultural barriers with all of these initiatives, because I'm not one to quickly advocate that we implement a 4-day work week because it worked well in England or it worked well in one jurisdiction, that it will work equally well here. What I would like, as you alluded to, is to conduct some research. Perhaps Dr. Nurse, who's also, as I said, company here, and I may probably want to embark on some research to look at the prospect of, or the viability of a 4-day work week, and whether it actually is going to work. Because the thing about every jurisdiction, remember their idiosyncrasies in terms of how the economic structure is made up. And let me give you a perfect example. Remember, we had just a conversation just before COVID on the 24-hour work week. And one would say, well, that is quite at variant with the conversation of a 4-day work week. So how do we fit those two conspicuously at odds initiatives? If this is the government stance that, you know, a 24-hour economy is where we have to go because tourism and because we have to be, you know, viable, the 4-day work week may be something that may have to be perhaps construed to or assigned or co-assigned to, let's say, a workplace by discretion, in the sense that, like, let's say, for example, if I may want to experiment as a small business with a 4-day work week, I think I would impress on employers to play with it. But in playing with it, document the benefits, document the costs and the disadvantages. So I would say that, yes, research has to be done first, but there's nothing wrong with experimenting to see what happens in your specific context.
Mm-hmm. Well, truth be told, when I looked at the whole concept of the 4 days, I interpreted it not that the business would only be operational, would only be open to consumers for 4 days, but that there would be a staggered shift system.
Yes.
I gather with employees, you know, that some employees you work 4 days and you stagger how that 4-day arrangement is scheduled.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the variant of the model is that you would have a longer work day to balance out, so that you still end up with the 40 hours, for example, but it's a longer work day rather than, so that 1 day is cut off. So that's effectively
okay. Right. Actually, that's 10 hours. That's a long time. We're out of time though, but I want you to quickly take a look at Dr. Nurse's intervention, and if you can offer a comment before we close out our session there.
Yes, I am looking for it here. I agree with Professor Devonish. The interpersonal relations and communication play an important role. Perhaps we wish to mention some aspects that may be overlooked as we try to improve wellness. So the question on interpersonal relations and communications play an important role. Yes, so interpersonal relationships and communication are absolutely critical to workplace wellness. I think what Dr. Nurse might be alluding to is the fact that the other aspects of the environment, like leadership, trust, is absolutely critical, Dr. Holder and team here, because if you think about even something as simple as an employee assistance program, which is in place to support mental health, employees are not going to be inclined to participate in any mental health initiative if they feel that confidentiality is going to be breached or is at risk. If trust is not a major component, so trust, leadership, and I think leadership by example is also critical, because if I'm observing my CEO or my manager behaving in unhealthy ways, it's likely that I will emulate those particular patterns of behavior. So we as leaders, as small business owners, have to also lead from the front. I see a quick question here. I know that I'm violating.
Heather's back with another one. If you can take that one quickly.
So Heather is talking about aging population. The propensity for ageism may be a factor in how do we treat the institutional memory and the mental health issues which employees may have, who may feel marginalized and productive. And that's a critical question, because remember, we have older workers. The fact that we have an aging population suggests that we also have a large percentage of our businesses, small businesses especially, where they're older workers. And with older workers, there's a presentation of these types of health problems and challenges. I think there needs to be a reshifting in our mindset in terms of how we see age and how we see health and wellness. Not necessarily because I'm old that I am a kind of a liability for the company. And the same way, these workplace wellness programs can assist in business owners in managing that age condition and the challenges that it may present for businesses. So I think is like there's more impetus for us to kind of really get serious about implementing these programs. Yeah.
All right. Once again, very instructive. I see one just popped in quickly. Yes. Professor, just want to
yes, I can. Yeah.
give focus to that, not disadvantage that last
Cornelius.
Yes. About the employer.
Yes. Oh, yes. No, Cornelius. I know. We spoke heavily about the employees in the National Workplace Wellness Policy, but we can't talk about employees without talking about employers. In fact, if you think about it, the first gatekeepers when it comes to National Workplace Wellness Policy would be the employers themselves. Because if employers are not convinced that this National Workplace Wellness Policy is going to make a difference, I can talk my head off about employees this and employees that, but it's not going to intervene itself or find itself within the workplace. So you're correct. A core partner represents the employer community. In fact, I can tell you this, that one of the major partners that sits on the National Committee is one that represents the BEC, the Barbados Employers Confederation. I think SBA has a presence on it. I could be wrong. I don't want to. Yes, there's a presence of the SBA. Right. So that is where we acknowledge that employers are going to be a key partner in this enterprise. How about also advancing this to a national government? Yes, public sector is the single largest employer in Barbados. So clearly, the government is not going to be absent in this whole exercise. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Okay. Thank you once again. Professor, we thought that it would be instructive for our very first session for 2023 to begin this conversation. And the fact that you've done some very good work with the wellness policy. And you rightly said in your presentation, a lot of people don't know that it exists. So we want to bring this to the attention of our members, our colleagues, our friends, that there is actually a national workplace wellness policy, and the tools are there that small business owners can access and adapt to their specific environment. But, pay attention to it, because as I said, I don't like that first statistic there. 93% of those surveyed, albeit a global poll, but 93% of those surveyed admitted that, the health and wellness of the employee impacted the bottom line, but only 20% actually had policies and programs in place. So this is an encouragement to the sector to treat this topic as a very, very serious one. Colleagues, we've come to the end of our session. We ran over time, but it was very, very instructive. We really thank you for staying on with us for these extra minutes. Look out for our next session coming in the month of March. As I indicated before, the webinar series is a monthly undertaking, so we'll send you out that information for the month of March. We're going to have again another interesting and exciting topic that will assist our stakeholders as we continue to manage our enterprises in this very, very challenging economic environment, might I add. And so we're going to bring a topic that I believe is going to be of significance and relevance to your firm. So look out for that in the month of March. Please, if you've not yet done so, kindly go to the chat. Remember, download the tools that the professor has placed there for us. They're free of cost. At this time, I believe free of cost to you. So download them, that you can use them in your businesses. But also, we've also put the link to our short evaluation tool. So please click on it and share your comments. Take just about 5 minutes to give us some feedback on today's session. As I said, your feedback is important to us. It helps us as we continue to improve our product offering to you, our stakeholder grouping. So please stay another 5 minutes and complete that short evaluation exercise for us. So from me, let me thank again Professor Dwayne Devonish, an expert in this field of workplace wellness, and for sharing again a very comprehensive presentation with us. And from the feedback that I'm seeing even in the chat, I do believe that persons are very appreciative of the information shared today. The thing that is the uptake. I want to see persons actually adopting a workplace policy, applying the tools that have been developed, in your businesses, so we can have more productive employees and obviously more productive workplaces. So thank you once again, colleagues, for being with us today for this February session. We look forward to seeing you in the month of March, where we host another in our webinar series. God bless you all. Do have a good day. Bye-bye for now.